going to start with a couple of phrases. Hopefully they're things that you can agree with. So I think creating and delivering products is hard. I think ideas are easy, but I think realizing and delivering products is a challenge. Hopefully nobody in the room is going to disagree with that. I've got a portfolio, spreading 15, 20 years of lots of, I think, great ideas that have never made it to the screen. And I'm sure if you've been in product, if you've been in design a long time, you'll have those scrapbooks of things that you go, didn't quite make it, but you still believe in it. To up the ante from that statement, I think creating and delivering successful products is even harder. So the question then is really, how can we make it easier? How can we make it more likely that our efforts lead to the delivery of successful products? And the answer is really in the title of the talk, have more conversations with customers. So I'm going to get you to do a couple of things tonight. At some point, I'm going to get you to write stuff down. So if you've got paper, pen, or something, a phone that you can make notes on, that would be a good thing. The other thing I'm going to get you to do is to do one vote. I've got one question for you. I'd like to get your feedback, both the people in the room and the people on the Zoom call. And this is the question that I'm going to set you. I'm interested really to see what the answer's here. So if you get your phone out, you point it at the QR code, or you go to slido.com, you can answer this question. And for the vote, what I'm really interested in is conversations you've had with customers in real time. So not watching a recording, not having a presentation from a research company, but seeing people use and talk about your product or talk about their needs. And I'm going to try to go and see what the poll looks like live. Oh, lots of people in the last week, lots of people in the last month. You don't need to listen to me. You can go home. You can go and listen to Fatboy Slim if you want. I won't be offended. But equally, I'm going to share some of my thoughts to hopefully encourage you to do even more of that. So I see my job as a user-centered designer as gathering insights, usually from research, usually from conversations, and turning them into interfaces. And when I look back at the work that I've done, the best work always comes from something that I've heard somebody say, some insight I've got from a customer that has sparked something in my mind that has then found it into the product. And when I look at the final product that's delivered, I can trace those stories back to those conversations. Now, I'm not a genius designer, and that's why I have to go out and have those conversations. I have to rely on other people to help me find those interesting things. If you are a genius designer, come and let me know, and I will give you a job. I don't think many of them exist, if any of them. So why don't we have more conversations with customers? These are some of the things that I hear people say when I go to clients, when I go and talk to product teams from an agency perspective, and I talk about what do your users say, people often go, we haven't actually gone and talked to our users. We don't really know what our customers say. And then they spin out all of these excuses for the reasons why they don't. And they often don't come up with reasons why they should be doing more research. I think these are all kind of just mental blockers. No time, it's too expensive, the results aren't statistically significant, they're never going to be statistically significant, shouldn't worry about it. We know what our customers want. That seems like a very arrogant thing to say. I think we should be breaking down, instead of looking at why we don't do stuff, why we should and how we can do stuff. And I've got 3 tips at the end of this project that will help you in your organization have more conversations with customers. But first, I want to talk about what is the secret to product success. I'm going to pick some examples out. Steve Jobs obviously knew a thing or two about product. There's a myth that he didn't like doing user research and he closed down the user research department at Apple. That's not true. He did a huge amount of research. He spent a lot of time understanding the needs of his users and then translating it into product. This isn't new stuff. Charles and Ray Eames, furniture designers, movie makers, exhibition designers, pretty much in America, post-war America, redefined the process of of modern product design. And I love this quote: recognizing the need is the primary condition for design. And the way that you can recognize the primary need is to go and have conversations with people. I really like this 21st century view of business. It comes from John Wiltshire, who runs the Smithery. He's based in Lewes. If you're not familiar with the Smithery, subscribe to his newsletter. It's fabulous. But this idea that in the modern world, we want to be making things that people want. Therefore, we have to know something about people and what they want. And that is better than making people want things, which is an old school view of marketing. Finding the thing that people need, the problem they've got, and solving it for them is a really good way of having a successful product. And there's a bunch of kind of academic papers, lots of things in Harvard Business Review that will also point to this. Year after year, a version of this story comes out, the idea that when you go and look at successful products and successful companies, the thing that underpins them time and time again is how closely connected they are to their users, how much they understand their users, the behavior of their users, and the need of their users. So that feels quite compelling. Like, lots of people that are doing good product stuff are having those conversations. But as I say, there's lots of barriers to why people don't do research. And I think I'm going to try, strangely, in 10 minutes to give you pretty much everything you need to know to have a conversation with a customer. If you've not done it or not done it for a while, I'm going to give you the 10-minute masterclass in why you should do more UX research. And I'm going to start with, I think, hopefully, a controversial phrase. Research is easy. If you're working with user researchers and they tell you different, tell them research is easy. And I've got a story to prove this for you. So slightly it actually goes on from Heather's talk, because I'm going to talk about an archaeologist who rediscovered something. So Hiram Bingham is a professor at Harvard in the States. He's the inspiration for Indiana Jones. It's the real-life person that Indiana Jones is based on. And in 1911, he rediscovers Machu Picchu. This was covered in the forest. It was the lost city that people have been looking for decades. He kept a diary of his experiences called Incaland. I'm going to talk about 2 books tonight. Incaland is good, but the second book is definitely the one you want to get from Amazon or Bookseller tomorrow. So hold off putting a book order in till you've got the second book. Incaland is a great diary. And there's a passage in it that I'm gonna read to you. So you can see Indiana Jones couldn't get a photo with him with a bullwhip, but apparently he did have a bullwhip that he would carry around with him. But in Incaland, before when he's looking for Machu Picchu, he writes in his diary, "We passed an ill-kept, grass-thatched hut, turned off the road through a tiny clearing, and made our camp for the night, just up the road from some huts. Our actions aroused the suspicion of the owner of the huts. Melchior Artiga was anxious to know why we didn't stay in the huts like respectable travellers. Our sergeant reassured him. They had quite a long conversation. And in the conversation, he learnt that we were interested in the architectural remains of the Incas. And Artiga said, 'Oh, if you're interested in the ruins of the Incas, there's a really good one on the hill up there, just through that clearing.' That's how Machu Picchu got discovered, through a long conversation and somebody knowing what you're interested in. And I think that is the essence of research. It is no more difficult than asking the right people the right questions. So I think with research, you need to get into the habit of getting out of your office. I always used to say at talks that you can't have a conversation from your desk. I mean, you can now because you can use Zoom. It's really easy. But for the point of this, you need to mentally get out of your office and out of your desk. This is one of my favorite photos from GDS, the Government Digital Service, when they started in their first office. They put up a huge sheet of brown paper on the wall, ripped out a space so people could see out of the window as a reminder that the people they were designing for weren't to be found in their office. If they wanted to understand their customers, they needed to get out of their chairs, away from their desks, and out to where the people that they're designing for happen to inhabit. And I work with lots of clients where this is an anathema to them. They sit in a headquarters, they process lots of data, but they've never gone out of their office to meet customers. And it often seems to be the line item on a budget that gets cut first, like it's some luxury that you can do without. But I think it isn't a luxury you can do without. I think it's one of the essential parts of good product design. So I'm going to talk a little bit about tools. Now, I love digital tools, and I'm not saying don't use the tools that I'm going to show you. I'm just saying that they have their place and you need to be careful when you pick the tools. And I think the question you should ask yourself is, should I be going out of my office to talk to people instead of using this tool? Am I just being lazy? Am I trying to get quick answers by using these tools? So Google Analytics, a lot of people have set up. Other analytics packages are available. They tell you a lot of good stuff, but what they tend to tell you is what is happening on your product, not why it's happening or what possibly could be happening. It doesn't tell you anything really about the user. When you go into the demographic thing, I can find out roughly, if you believe the data, the ages, the gender breakdown of my customers. But I don't really know them. I haven't really had those conversations with them. Heather talked about usertesting.com. It has its place. I would say, though, that in-person conversations trump on moderated conversations. I have lots of clients that use usertesting.com as a way of saying, we've done user testing. We've set a thing up. We've got answers back. And then I get to watch the videos. And you have these people that they've asked on the panel who will say things like, well, in this design, I really like the use of white space. And the affordance on that button feels really good. They aren't normal users. Normal people don't talk like that. That's a bunch of designers that are using usertesting.com to see what other people's products are going to go into market. So be careful, be a bit cynical about the products you're using. Beware of volume. Beware of easy responses. Beware of promises of artificial intelligence. Remesh is a recently launched service. Promises to use artificial intelligence and pool people around the world with instant answers. And you put your product up, you ask questions, you get stuff back. It feels really quick. But again, it doesn't feel like a deep conversation. It feels like you're asking lots of people, what do you like about this? They come back going, I'd like it a bit pinker. Doesn't really help you make a great product. Quality of conversations, I think, is better than quantity. Scale up with analytics, scale up with these tools once you've had those deep conversations. A few people, 6, a dozen people. Go small and then scale up with the tools. So here's the thing about product. Everybody says product's really difficult, and I think launching it is. But understanding why people don't use your product is really easy. There's 3 reasons. The 3 reasons that people don't convert into customers is they don't get it. You've got a problem with your positioning or your proposition. And you can find that out quite quickly with a conversation with people. Show them stuff. What do you think about this? What's your response? You will find out really quickly if they go, I have no idea what this is. I've got no idea what problem this will solve. They don't want it. Maybe what you're offering doesn't fix the problem that they've got. People use products to fix problems in their life, get jobs done. Again, have a conversation with people, find out what they're trying to solve, see if your product helps them do that. And then the third one, I think the interesting one, they don't need it enough. And I think this is the cause of many products that are okay, they get to market, but they're not successful, is when people are not willing to pay what you're asking them to pay. The price of the product is too high, or the value that they perceive they get from it is not great enough. And again, you get those answers really quickly from having conversations with customers. It's no more difficult than putting your product in front of people and asking them, what does this solve in your life? Or flipping that round before you've even got the product and saying, how do you achieve this? How do you go about solving this problem? So if time and budget are limited, how do you pick the right time to do research in a project? This could be the IBM loop. I've gone for the double diamond. All shapes are available. Don't we all love a shape and a framework? The Design Council double diamond, two ends of the scale, formative research at one end, evaluative research at the other end of the project. Equally, I could go, this is the exploration space, this is the execution space. One on the left-hand side could be, what's the problem we're looking for? Right-hand side could be, what's the solution that we're going to create? And most people start their conversations with customers at this end, the right-hand side, with usability testing. Usability testing is brilliant. We do a lot of it at Clearleft, but it's not the only type of research we do. And usability testing, I think, is the gateway drug to research. If you've not done research before, if you're working in an organization that is skeptical about research, start at that end, because you'll get people to come in, observe people using a product that your experts have built, and it might not work. And that's brilliant. I mean, I've worked on projects with really expert teams. First user came in, couldn't use the thing, and we all looked at each other and went, that's interesting, isn't it? It's a product on an iPad, and as soon as you pick the iPad up and hold it, your hand has gone over the call to action button for the thing we want you to do. And half a dozen expert designers with years of experience got that wrong. And I love that. I love that. So humbling that your users will tell you quickly. So definitely do that. Go into the gateway drug, do usability testing. But at some point, move left on the scale. I think the magic in conversations with customers happens here, before you have got a product. Because this is where you have that opportunity to look for what is a big enough problem or an interesting enough problem for your users that you can go and solve. And having those conversations in this space throws up all of those opportunities. It throws up what people are doing, what they're trying to achieve, and how you can fit into that. And at that point, you haven't spent any money developing a product. You're still looking for the product to develop. So it's cost effective to do it there. There's less rework to be done at this stage. The other great thing about the internet is full of prototypes. You can ask people to look at stuff here. You don't have to have your product. You can use everybody else's product to understand what you should be building. Start thinking of the internet as a bunch of prototypes to test. I'm going to talk about interview technique. So one of the things when I coach people in doing usability testing is they have a moment of panic going, oh my God, I've got to actually sit down next to somebody and ask them something. And you go, do you go down the pub and have conversations with your friends? And they go, yeah, I do that. When you go down the pub and you have conversations with your friends, do you sit there and ask them stuff? Yeah, I do that. Okay, it's no different, just you haven't got as much beer on tap. When people start doing usability testing, research interviews, they talk too much. To get good at doing research interviews, you want to be looking more, listening more, smiling more, and talking less. If you've got an hour's conversation with a user, record it so you can play it back. But when you play it back, take out a stopwatch. Time how long you talk in that interview. Because when you're talking, you're not learning anything. And if you're talking for more than 10 minutes, aggregate over that hour, you're talking too much. Get comfortable with silence. If you sit there, people will answer you. They'll give you stuff. I promise that will happen. Give them an interesting question, set them up, get them rolling, and then sit back and just listen to that stuff. Now, I talked about the two books that I was going to recommend. This is my favorite book on research. Dr. Seuss is a genius user experience researcher. If you want to buy one book about research and one book only, go on Amazon and buy I Can Read With My Eyes Shut. It's a brilliant book. It won't take you more than 10 minutes to read. If you've got kids, you will probably read it over and over again, but it's worth doing that. I won't ruin the whole story, But the thing about the book that I really like is that it's about having a curiosity about the world, about asking questions and taking the pride in questions, and not having to have the answers. So there's loads of research in American preschool and American schools that shows that preschool kids ask their parents on average about 100 questions a day. So I'm not a parent, but I imagine some of your parents, you're used to this. Kids under 5 ask you brilliant questions. Why is the sky blue? Why are you taller than me? Why do I have to eat my broccoli? It's all about questions. They're discovering the world by asking questions. And they don't care if they're good questions or not. But somehow you go to school, and in America what it says is that by the time people get to middle school, they've pretty much stopped asking questions. Our education system starts to value the answer above the question. So you go to school and you're in this system where you're forced to go, I know the answer and I'm seen as the bright person in the class. And if you've got the question, you're not seen as that. As a researcher, you want to flip that around. You want to find your inner child. You want to embrace the questions. I work the whole time with teams going, what's the questions that we're trying to answer? And people go, I've got a solution. I don't worry about the solution. We'll get to a solution. The question is the more exciting and interesting thing. Now, I've written some blog articles about asking questions. I'm not going to go through it. That's a whole other talk, which at some point I'm happy to give. But the good news is that asking better questions is a very learnable framework. There's about 12 tips that you need to know that are really easy. You will know them already. You just need to be reminded of them. This blog article, lots of people have read it. It's worth reading. It won't take you long, and then you will be a genius at asking questions. So if you're worried about that, that's where I would start. And then my final 2 tips on becoming this expert in research is to make sure that you have your conversations with customers and make it a team sport. Heather played on this earlier. I think it's really important to get your whole team involved. So devs, project managers, designers, the CEO, whoever you can get to be there to have those conversations, to help you write the facilitation guide, to start sending you Slack messages when you're in the middle of a session going, could you ask a bit more about this? That's good. The more you can get everybody there, the more real those customers become, the easier it is to design for them. Government digital services mandate that the whole team have a bunch of contact time with customers. That's developers, project managers, designers, all working there together. I worked at an agency in London where we had, and this wasn't uncommon, but we had a chief executive come and observe some usability testing. In 15 years of running his product team, he'd never seen a real customer use his product. And we had a moment of really having to persuade him to come along to the session. He was like, oh God, that's 2 hours out of my day. He came out of those sessions saying it was both the worst and the best time he'd had. Like, people panned his product, but equally he knew where he needed to go with that product to develop it, and then saw the value in it. Heather's talked about storytelling. I'm not going to go deeply into storytelling beyond saying, have fun with how you tell the stories. Doing the research is one thing, having those conversations is one thing, but keeping that stuff alive is really important. Worked with a client recently that put out a quarterly magazine on the research tips that they'd got. They drew cartoons. They had some nice concept drawings. They made it kind of really easy to digest. We use a lot of video clips. We do a lot of playbacks and talk people through the research that we do, and we tell those stories, as Heather said, over and over again. Some of you will know Matt Walker, UX designer in Brighton. When he worked at the BFI, he had a persona poster, and he had a blank bit in the middle where every week he would write a question in it and get people to answer the question from the eyes of the persona, just to keep people coming up and using that material. So that's pretty much all you need to know about user research. I did say I was going to leave you with 3 habits for continuous discovery. These won't take very long. And the idea of continuous discovery, I think, is important. You want to be not doing research as an ad hoc one-off thing. You want to be finding ways to constantly be doing it. So my first habit that I think you should get into is be prepared and question ready. Have a log of ongoing questions. So when I go and do research, I try to find those opportunities of who can I talk to ahead of going and seeing the client. I've been lucky enough to do loads of research in America, did a lot of work for museums in America. My research would start at the airport, in the taxi, at the hotel reception desk, talking about the museum I was going to, getting some feedback from people that were in New York. Free research. Taxi drivers love to talk to you. I'd go to the museum the day before and I would just have conversations with people around the museum. Why have you come today? I'm from out of town. Why have you come today? What would you recommend I go and see? You then start your client meetings already armed with some stories. But that means you have to have some questions. So I'm going to get you to get pen and paper, phones out, anything to make notes on. And I want you to take 2 minutes, I will time it, to write down, thinking about your product, what you're working on. If you met your perfect user, if you were in an elevator, if you were in a buffet, if you were in a bar and your perfect user appeared, what 3 questions would you ask them? Don't overly think it. Write them down. I'm not going to get you to share. You're just going to write these down for yourself. I think constraints are always good whenever we're building anything. Put some constraints in place. Helps you to focus. Nobody's brave enough to use the voice thing on their phone to get their thoughts down. We're going to use our fat thumbs to type. 30 seconds to go. 3 questions. I'm hoping people on the Zoom call are also writing out their 3 questions. So without a huge amount of thought, you've got 3 questions down. What's your 1 question? If you could only ask 1 question, person goes, I'm in a real hurry, what would it be? Put an asterisk, circle it. So the second habit to have more conversations with customers is to go guerrilla. And what I mean by this is don't wait to get sign-off for a research project. I worked at a large travel company, and to get a budget and a research project signed off was just such a ball ache. You'd have to fill in a briefing form, you'd have to put a business case together, it would have to go to a quarterly board to review it against all the other business cases, it would often get turned down. Then one day we had the great idea of, this holiday company's got a whole set of shops. Why don't we just go to one of the shops and talk to people? And we didn't ask permission beyond the manager of the shop. Turned up at the shop, asked the manager, once you've served your customers, do you mind if we ask them if we can have 10 minutes with them? Within a day, we came back with more insight than we'd had in the last 12 months. So we just got out and did it. I did some training with Hackney Council. These people weren't designers, they were front-facing staff, giving them some research techniques. By the second day of training, they'd all gone out and they'd found people to talk to in locations about stuff that they wanted to find out about. And they came back with a huge amount of insight. They didn't ask permission, they just got up and did it. And I think that's the kind of mindset to get into, is not looking at why can't we do research, why can't we have those conversations, but how do we make them happen? How do I take time out to go and have them? So with that in mind, I'm going to get you to do an activity of speed location planning. So where would you find customers to talk about your product? Give me one location that you could get to quite easily to find people that might be your customers. So if you were researching a food app, finding a local food market might be a place to go where you could go there's probably people there worth having a conversation with. It might be that people phone up your support desk with product queries, and that might be a way of going, actually, I could get in touch with those people and have decent conversations. So have a think about, write down where you could go online or physically to talk about your product to your customers. So the good news is you've got 3 questions and a primary question, and now you've got somewhere to go and have a conversation with users. You've got a research plan. You've got all you need to have that conversation. So really, you could be going out tomorrow with an actionable research plan and have a decent conversation and learn something about your product. I mean, I say tomorrow, if your location to find your user is the kebab shop, the taxi rank, the pub, you could do this tonight. So the final thing about having more conversations is make it a date. Really successful customer-focused organizations do continuous discovery, and they often increase the contact time with users by booking research sessions on a regular basis. First Tuesday of the month, we're going to get everybody together for half a day, and we'll get some users to come in, or we'll have Zoom calls with them, and we'll show them something. And the mindset there is you don't, at that point, have to know what you're going to show them. It might be a competitor site, it might be something you're working on, it might be your existing product, but importantly, you've set a time and a place and a date, and you're getting into that habit of having more conversations and finding that nuance. And I think to do that, the big switch is changing the funding model from project research funding, the one-off ad hoc, to making this an operational cost, making it a year and 18-month cost, getting your organization to support you, and to say there is some value in this. We should be doing this on a regular basis. So they're the 3 habits I want you to get into. That's the end of my talk. I'm going to take questions, but I also have questions for you, which are these 2 questions. Feel free to either answer those questions or ask your own questions. Thank you for listening to me. I think that's a great question, because I think there are levels of simplicity. Most stuff that most of us use domestically, consumer level, if you're writing instructions, you've got too complicated an interface. But there are things in the world which are complicated. If you go into did some work with Virgin Atlantic, I was lucky enough to sit in the cockpit of a jumbo jet. Made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Apparently it needs to be that complicated, but thankfully they train people to understand where the stuff is. And once you, as an innocent person, I looked at it and went, there's a lot of buttons here. But actually, as a trained pilot, you are going, the stuff over here does these kinds of things. See how technical I am. And the stuff over here does these things. And basically most of the time I'm on a steering wheel. So there's a level of complexity you need in that kind of product, but you are simplifying it to the point that it is understandable under stress. But that doesn't mean that anybody could sit there and use it. And I think there's kind of that nuance there that is interesting. Most digital products are overly complicated and over featureful for what people use. We do a lot of kind of SaaS software stuff where the product team tend to go, the travel tends to be, let's introduce more features, rather than going, the value is in simplifying the feature set and really understanding what is the customer trying to do and how can we get them to do it as quickly and as confidently as possible, and then get out of the way of what they're doing. Yeah, Microsoft is overcomplicated. All of their, don't get me started about Teams. Does anybody work in the product team of Teams? Has anybody ever met anybody who works in the product team of Teams? Just there's something fundamentally wrong with it. There's something, it feels like it should work, but it doesn't. And I'd love to have a conversation as a consumer of that product. I hope they go and have conversations with their customers. Because if they talk to anybody that works at Clearleft, they would have a view of, do we have to use Teams? Do we have to, when a client goes, we're going to use Teams, like, oh, let's persuade them to use Slack and Zoom and things that work more instinctively. So the first one, anybody can be a researcher. If Benjamin Ass, senior user researcher, is listening, I will apologize. He's brilliant. But anybody can do research. It's a conversation with people where you are listening and you're picking out the interesting bits. That's what we do as humans, right? The more research you do, if that is your job role, the better you get at it. It's a learnt thing. You get more experience. When it goes wrong, you've got more technique and tactics that you can draw on to recover from whatever you've done. But all of you have conversations all day long. That's a form of research. Conversations and those human interactions are all part of research. I think you can get better at it. You can apply yourself at it. You can learn more techniques about it. But that shouldn't stop anybody doing it. You don't have to have a researcher in your team to do research. The other question about when do you know you've done enough research? So one of my bugbears is that word statistical significance. It's a bugbear because I think most people don't actually know mathematically what that means. If you say to somebody, okay, when you say statistical significance, what p-value do you want? And they look at you blankly, like, okay, we're talking different languages here. In the research that we do as design researchers, our measure is confidence. We want more confidence, or a level of confidence that we're comfortable that we're going in the right direction. So we're happy having conversations with 6 people to a dozen people that have some commonality within their behavior. So like a persona group or a behavior type or a similarity in that customer group. And I think when you start getting the similar themes coming out, when you're in a research interview and you're going, I've heard all of this before, which is really bad for the participant because you're kind of rolling your eyes going, come on, give me something. Give me a good quote for the report. Give me a good video clip. Tell me something I don't know. And that's not their fault. You've just listened to 11 other people tell you the same thing. At that point, I think your confidence in this is a thing, this is a theme that's emerging, comes out. And then you go, maybe we should explore some product ideas, and then we'll build something and we'll put that prototype in front of people. And hopefully the same problem that we heard is the thing that people going, oh, that's good, that I've got that problem and you've solved it for me. So I think it is that kind of that level of confidence. I'll get this slightly wrong, but there's a prioritization matrix that I really like that is based around value and risk in really human terms. And the scales on it are a pint, a weekend away, a car, a house. And that idea of there are some decisions that is like a pint, that it's a low cost decision and it's low value to build. You should just do it. Like if you're doing research about what is the best sign-on form for an account page, it's a solved problem. Like you might have a better idea, but it's not the most valuable thing in the world. Like loads of places have a login page, just nick somebody else's design. But when you get further up the scale where you go, the cost of doing this is like house size cost, or the risk of it is house size, then you want some research to gain some confidence in that. And I think those measures are, like we have to put business cases together and go down to the last dollar, but really they're the kind of finger in the air stuff of, if you've got a startup and somebody goes, we've got £10 million to invest in a product and we need it within 4 weeks, that's the time as a designer, I would go, I might need to go and talk to some people just to find out if we're spending this in the right way. If you say to me, we're going to the cinema tomorrow, should we research what film to go and watch? I might go, do you know what, I just trust your opinion. It's like, what's the worst I'm going to do? Lose a couple of hours of my life. So I think that confidence is, I would always bring people back to, like, we don't know the answers. Research won't give us a definitive answer. What we're looking for is some confidence that we're going in the right direction. Yeah, I really love when clients go, I've seen this feature that Google have got, I've seen this thing that Amazon have done, and you're like, okay, they're a company with 30 years history, with a huge engineering team, and you don't have their money or their scale or their capacity. Let's try to see what your thing should be. I think borrowing ideas from other people is really good. Like, there are some things that you go, that seems to work. There seems to be a lot of people doing that, or I've used that product and it seems to work. But I think the essence in product is trying to find that point of difference and differentiation, of going, what's our unique take on this? As I said, I worked for museums. For a long time, I worked for lots of museums. And there's a pattern in museums and museum websites. But the secret was always to find what was unique about that museum and their story and their data and their audience. And you can borrow from other people, but I think it's that secret of really finding out what is the thing that your organization or your product can do that is different. Otherwise, you're always playing catch up, and you're always playing that feature race again of going, oh, competitor over here has launched a feature, therefore we have to have that feature. And in some cases that might be right, but that often feels as if what you're doing there is saying, oh, we're going to spend time replicating something that they've done that we don't know is going to work, rather than spending time working out where is our innovation, where's our big breakthrough, what's our unique thing, what's our spin on that gives our product that point of difference. I'm going to try not to say it depends to that. As much as you can do, as frequently as you can, at the point that you need some confidence in what you're doing. So I would definitely advocate for researching as early as you can in that process, before you've even started developing something, but then doing smaller amounts of research, but more frequently. And I think almost in that agile way of pivoting as you're going along, using research as a way of doing that, of kind of sense checking what you've got, seeing if there are other opportunities there. The danger of doing a handful of interviews early on and then months later building something and then evaluating it with some people is a lot of things have been decided through that process, which I think is one of the big strengths about that continuous discovery and the idea of having like a monthly or a regular booked in session is, as things are emerging, you can test them. And you can test product from a verbal description of it through to some concepts written out, through wireframes, napkin sketches. You can go really low fidelity and test lots of ideas and get some idea of which of those ideas have strength. So yeah, I would, if you've got a budget and you go, if the choice is, should we do 30 interviews up front and then nothing for a few months, I would say do 6 interviews every week through that process. I would spread it out.